Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Tidd. I'm the Director of Research and Analytic Systems Development at E3 Alliance, which means I've got the longest title. The mission of E3 is to use objective data and focused community collaboration to align our education systems so that all students can succeed and lead Central Texas to economic prosperity. Each year, E3 holds several events that we affectionately refer to as E3 3Ds. The 3D stands for data-driven decision-making. Today's Central Texas Education Profile release is a 3D event that E3 has held annually for the last 10 years. Students who are in second grade when we started just graduated from high school. Ideally. We're working on that, aren't we? Yes. Okay, so turning back to data-driven decision-making for a moment. All of us are here today because we value data. Data to help us understand needs and develop plans. Data to celebrate successes and on occasion to regroup in the face of setbacks. We aspire to be a data-driven region supported by a shared commitment to data availability, the capacity and capability to use data, and the culture of data use. Each of us in the room reflects one or more facets of that commitment through our belief that data is a tool that we can, should, and must use to help guide our work. This is not an easy path. To quote Albert Einstein, we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. What we can do is eliminate barriers to the use of data that hide key insights, prevent thoughtful discussion and exploration, and limit our ability to understand the problems we're working to solve. That's why we're here today as we explore, synthesize, formulate, and summarize our way through the Central Texas Education Profile, the most comprehensive regional view of education outcomes and trends in the state of Texas. The fundamental goal of today's event is to make a quantum leap in how we access and use data. Over the past 10 years, E3 has worked diligently to assemble a sometimes startling array of education facts, figures, and findings. As time passed, the Central Texas Education Profile grew and grew and grew. What did not keep pace were the tools to help digest this data, to actively engage, to question, puzzle, and ultimately to understand. We tried our best to provide key findings and important distinctions in the slide decks that we assembled on a range of topics, and we think we did a pretty good job. We will continue to apply our best thinking to how we work with the data, but thought it was time to let you in on the fun. This morning, E3 is delighted to be able to debut the Interactive Central Texas Educational Profile, or ICTEP. That said, we put a lot more effort into developing the tool than naming it, so we're happy to crowdsource a better name. See me after. Yeah, we're looking for something that rolls off the tongue a little more easily. You'll have the chance to dive into the data, pull the levers, turn the dials to make it your own. You'll work in pairs and small groups to prod and poke the data to identify the issues you feel are important, to begin to sketch out the limits of what we know and define what we must learn more about. I've been trying to come up with a way to characterize the fast-paced exploration we have planned and landed on Water Park. Our intent is to get you sopping wet with data, but leave you leaving with a smile on your face. I know Susan likes to say data boarding, but I'm proposing that we switch to data parking instead. We'll see if that flies. Before we dive in, I'd like to thank the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation for the support and encouragement that they have provided E3 since long before I joined up. The tool you see is a direct reflection of their commitment to seeing a data-driven region realized. Okay, that said, I'm going to place you in the capable hands of E3's own Joshua Scott. Joshua is not only the visionary behind ICTEP, he is also the craftsman who built it.
But I didn't name it.
No, he didn't. Also joining Joshua is E3's Susan Dawson, the president of our merry little band. Joshua, light it up.
Thank you all for coming out this morning. We appreciate it as always. As Simon said, it's been 10 years that we've been producing the profile. It started as a comprehensive look at the education pipeline in Central Texas. It is the foundation for the development of the blueprint for educational change. And as time has gone on, we've done more research, uncovered more actionable findings, added more and more slides to the deck. Eventually we split it out into separate decks, and let me maybe put that there. Okay.
So how many slides do we have in the deck now, Joshua?
Well, we're changing that definition, but as of last year,
300?
around 300 slides.
So I hope we're going to go over every single one of those today.
No.
Come on.
Sorry.
No data boarding?
There's like 2 more meetings after this, Susan. Okay, so the profile was a static, well, it was pretty much a static PDF online. It became so unwieldy that we broke it into a bunch of different PDFs, and they are still accessible. You can get the last couple of years as those static documents online. Of course, the profile, we like to think of it as a way to talk comprehensively about the education space and education outcomes in the region. But first and foremost, we want it to be an actionable, useful tool for y'all out in the community.
And some of you were part of a survey that we did last year about how this data is being used and has been used, and we got a whole variety of perspectives. So for instance, grant writers, is anybody responsible for development or the other end of grant writing? Often reference these PowerPoints or these documents to be able to understand what the region looks like. What else, Joshua?
Administrators, teachers, not really necessarily teachers with this tool.
Business leaders and government leaders have told us that they're looking at demographic changes through this profile. Am I backing up or are you backing up?
That's me backing up, I think. We'll get this figured out eventually, and then I'll be done. So we've taken this tool, and what we're doing is we're gradually turning it into an online interactive tool. And so that starts with taking all of our slides, our static slides that we have, converting them to images online with text so that we can actually index them for searchability. But then we also take that most important, the foundational and the actionable, and we make that interactive so that it's easier for you to really drill down and look at the data. Not only to slice finer points, but also to look at the raw numbers behind things in a way that's easier than digging through a PDF, finding the slide you want, and then emailing one of us saying, hey, do you have the number behind this percentage so that I can write it in my report?
So this is a work in process. There's a lot to be done, but there's a lot already there. Are you going to show it to us?
We are. We're going to have a little show and tell. After that, Simon's going to have a little activity for us. As we said, this is a work in progress. So some of our chapters are completely interactive. Some of them have a little bit of interactivity with some static slides included, and then some of our chapters are still static in nature, but we're rapidly evolving that.
So let's dive in.
Okay.
First, if anybody has not logged on to the Wi-Fi, we asked y'all to bring some sort of computer or tablet or something, so there should be a few at every table. You need to get onto the Wi-Fi today. It's TCEA guest, and the password is E3. And then this is the site we'll be looking at. You'll have a few minutes to do it because we're going to be having Joshua go through it first. So we're not in a hurry, but go ahead and log on to data.e3alliance.org.
That's right, and if you don't have a laptop or a tablet, it should work on your phone as long as your eyes aren't really bad and you left your glasses at home.
And that's okay, because we're going to pair you up with somebody else at the table anyway. So there'll be one of every 2 or 3 people will have something you can look at.
That's right, it does work on mobile, but I'm afraid you can't use Internet Explorer. Pretty much any other browser will work, but there are some issues with IE that we don't have sorted out and probably aren't going to.
Only dinosaurs like me still use Internet Explorer?
That's what I've been telling you, Susan. That's what I've been telling you. Okay, so let's actually look at the profile.
So it already looks different. It's
Very
not
different.
just static slides. What are these? They look like tiles.
So these tiles or panels, whatever you want to call them, basically how we're trying to arrange snippets of data. So any individual chart or small groups of data points.
Basically, it's a chapter in the profile.
It's a chapter in the profile, or it's a page in the chapter, depending on how you think of it or how it's formatted. So this is our front page. We do have a menu over here on the left, which lists all the different chapters of the profile. So we cover regional and workforce demographics in the region, enrollment, pre-K through 12, educators, attendance, retention, English language learners, dropouts and attrition, high school graduation, college enrollment, college persistence, college
all that
completion.
Stuff.
All that important stuff along the P16 education pipeline. And that's why we got up to over 300 slides, and we still have a lot of stuff that just hasn't been put in yet.
So when you say we've got over 300 slides, what is this talking about? What is the region that we're describing as Central Texas region?
Well, let me go over to our front page here, and we'll talk about that. So on our front page, in addition to having everything listed in the menu, we do have a few highlights here on the front page that you can mouse over, and you'll find links to dive deeper into the different sections of the profile. And so we talked about the profile a lot. We mentioned Central Texas, but what do we mean by Central Texas, right?
And I'm going to stop there and do a little process check. If anybody doesn't know this, what Joshua is doing right now is a control plus and a control minus. So if whatever you're seeing on the screen you want to be bigger or smaller, just do a control plus and it'll grow up, and a control minus and it'll go down.
That's right. If you don't have a touch screen, which I don't at the moment, it helps. That works in pretty much any app, control plus, control minus, to do the zoom. So when we talk about Central Texas, we're really talking about a union of two geographies. We're talking about the Austin-Round Rock Metropolitan Statistical Area, and we're also talking about the Austin Community College Service Area, and the two areas, both and the areas that overlap. So that includes Blanco County in the ACC service area and the rest of Williamson County from the MSA, combined together for the counties of Bastrop, Hayes, Williamson, Caldwell, and Travis. Now, if I mouse over my map here, I see I've got a couple links to explore, but I'm going to come down here first and look at pre-K through 12 enrollment.
So this is kind of the baseline. Where are our students? How many students are they? Where do they exist? What kinds of subpopulations do we have? What demographics are represented? What can we see in that data set?
Well, here we see that we have a good bit fewer percentage of low-income students compared to the state, as well as students of color. But we are on par with the state with the number of English language learners that we have.
And how do we zoom into that data?
So if we mouse over the data here, let's go.
Let's do maps. People love maps.
Everybody wants to see the maps.
Show us maps.
Well, let me preemptively zoom out here. Just because I've seen this before.
Ah, beautiful maps.
More. Okay.
So tell us what we're seeing there.
Okay, so here's a map of the percent of low-income students in every district across the region.
So each one of those pieces of the geography is a school district.
Right. If I reload that, you can see it. When you load the page, first load the page, it animates across the 10 years that are available.
So you'll see the changes.
Let me try to.
That's very cool. You'll see the changes in low-income students from 2006 to our most recent year, 2016.
That's right, and you can see on the regional trend line on the bottom that we really peaked out in 2012, and we've started to lose proportionally low-income students since then.
So go back to 2012 data. How do you do that?
Well, we can grab the slider here, or we can just go to 2012 and click on 2012.
Very cool.
And change it, or we can drag it along, and you can follow the changes in the districts in the.
So I can't see the individual districts here. So let's say we've got friends from Hayes CISD here. How do I know what's the percentage in Hayes?
Well, let me mouse over Hayes here. You can see highlighted on the left, Hayes has a 49% low income, and this is 2015-16 data.
Wow. So this is a great way to look very visually at how we compare district by district over time and across different parts of our region.
That's right. We can also explore other student groups as well.
So not just low income.
Not just low income.
Let's look at ELLs.
ELLs. So we can see, we can take it back to 2016.
Wow, look at the change between 2006 and 2016.
And we can see that the ELL population concentration doesn't have that same downward trend since 2012.
It's been consistently growing.
Increasing.
And so who are those districts that are bright red?
Let's see, I've got Manor with 36%, Del Valley with 35%, and Austin with 28%.
So we've got 3 school districts, 2 of them with more than a third of their students are ELLs.
That's right.
English language learners.
English language learners, thank you.
English language learners.
Yeah, you're right, that shouldn't be an abbreviation right there.
So that's a good point, Laura, is as we're going through this is the unveiling today. If there are things that you don't understand or think should be explained or think we should change about the tool, please collect them and email them to us or give it to Joshua later or whatever. We're going to keep the list about what would make this a more usable tool.
Absolutely. We definitely want your feedback, not just about the interface, but also which data you're really most excited about being able to dig deeper into.
So we've seen maps. How else can we look at data?
Well, before we move on, I was wondering, Susan, if anybody here could tell me what are the top 2 districts in terms of percentage enrollment of Asian students?
We're going to do a little scavenger hunt. So who's the table that can tell us most quickly what are the top 2 districts with Asian students in 2016? Now! Round Rock and Eames.
All right.
Good.
You thought that was going to take them too long.
Show us. You get to show us? No, they've already got it.
Well, maybe somebody's device isn't working, so I'll go ahead.
And Pflugerville has a lot, and Leander.
Pflugerville and Leander have a lot too.
Wow. Okay, so how else can we see data besides maps?
Okay. Well, in addition to maps, of course, we have charts. You come to my menu over here.
So we're still in enrollment data, right?
We're still in enrollment data. I'm going to stick with enrollment data for a minute. And again, as we said, some of these chapters have become fully interactive. Some are partially interactive with our static slides added, and some are still static. This is an example of a blended chapter right now.
So on the left side, we've got a chart that looks like it has what? Students enrolled grade by grade in Central Texas region. And then those numbers are what, Joshua?
Okay, so here on the left, this is a proportion of enrollment by grade for Central Texas, as Susan said. But here, next to it on the right, is actually the underlying data for the chart.
So we're looking at Central Texas, but we often compare ourselves to other regions. Show us, how do we compare to the state of Texas as a whole?
Well, as you can see, compared to Texas, if y'all didn't notice, I clicked on Texas down there at the bottom.
So you're looking at Central Texas in the green bars and Texas in the gray bars.
That's right. And so if you look, and this is proportional, obviously it's not total numbers, or Texas would be up here with their 5 million. But you can see the proportion is pretty comparable.
But in both of them, there is a significant blip at 9th grade. Who's an educator here who will tell us why there is so many more 9th grade students than any other grade level? Somebody? Repeats? Who said that? 9th grade retention, right? Students who are retained in 9th grade because they don't have enough credits to go on with their classmates.
Well, yeah, let's look at that real quick, Susan.
Oh, so it's a different chapter, 9th grade retention.
So let me click on my menu over here and go down to 9th grade retention.
So the good news is you can see right there at the very beginning, click on that slide so we can zoom it out.
So any of these static slides, you can click on them, bring them up as a higher resolution full screen image.
So the great news is, for the last 10 years, we've had a huge drop in students who are retained in 9th grade across the region. That's great news. Is that comparable for other regions? Let's go back to the chart and try to see. Like show me the live chart enrollment and click on Rio Grande Valley.
Let's see Rio Grande Valley.
So we were looking at this another week ago. Look at the retention in Rio Grande Valley versus the retention in Austin, Travis County area, Central Texas area. Very significant difference. So that's good news for us, but we need to keep working on that.
Yeah, and it looks like they're having a harder time with their 9th graders. So another scavenger hunt real quick. Who can tell me which region across the state has the highest proportion of high school students?
Which region in the state has the highest proportion of their students in high school? Anybody? Come on, guys. Rio Grande Valley? No. Who? El Paso. Show us El Paso.
You didn't have to guess.
Look at that. Significantly more students in a high school in the El Paso region. Many of you may not know that El Paso is one of the first regions of the state to have early college high schools that are a close pairing of their high schools with their local community college system. That could be a reason. We don't know why. This is an example of the data can tell us what's happening, not necessarily why it's happening.
That's right, and it's possible that this is a 4-year trend. We'd have to dig back more years to see if it's something that's consistent.
Cool. So what else do you want to show us, or should we put people out on their own?
I think it's time for Simon to get to boss people around a little bit.
So Simon, take us on their own scavenger hunts for every table. How are we going to do this?
Okay.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, now I'm going to do one little announcement before he starts. We tried to use data to randomize you all before you came in here today so that each group would have a different topic to look into. Some of the tables didn't get randomized as much as we like because I think they knew that not everybody showered this morning, and that word went out ahead of time. So if you are at a small table with only 1 or 2 or 3 people, you may want to combine with another table, but make sure it's in your topic area. So the attendance people combine with attendance table, star people combine with the star table, but make sure that you have enough people at your table to actually interact.
The true reason is some of you asked not to sit with your colleagues. You're welcome. That was Joshua's joke, by the way. Okay, that was amazing. I've seen it over time, and it still amazes me. So I promised that we're going to get to dig into the data and prod it and poke it and make it our own. So you have on your table a table instruction sheet that looks like this. Okay, there's one for each table. So what I would like to do, as I stall for a second and find my notes, what I'd like you to do is take the next 2 minutes and do the following things. First, I want you to just take a second to introduce yourself to your table mates so you know a little bit about your background. We have to do this very quickly as we do most of the activities that we've got packed into the rest of the time. What you also need to do is you need to choose a scribe, a table scribe, a spokesperson, and a facilitator. Okay? What we're also asking you to do is to choose an elbow partner. For some of the exercises, you're going to be paired up. You'll have to have at least one piece of technology between the 2 of you.
Or 3 of you if you have an odd number.
Okay. Each elbow partner group will have one yellow sheet, and there is one sheet for the whole table, a green sheet that the scribe will write on. So please take the next 2 minutes. I'm going to start yelling and screaming when it's time to come back, but we'll walk through the rest of the exercises and dig in. So let's get to know each other. So welcome back. It was good to see everybody engaged and really talking about what you've seen today. And also, quite honestly, it didn't break. A large-scale test for the first time with over 100 people with a new piece of technology. Joshua, wherever you are, you rock. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move to an interactive part of the program now. Well, we've been interacting. A differently interactive part of the program. So if you have not already done so, each of the spokespersons groups need to select an Uber spokesperson, because this whole day was really about selecting the foremost extroverted people in the room. Okay? So what we're going to have you do is come up to the stage, and I'll turn over the podium, and you're going to have 3 minutes to summarize what you've learned and the insights and questions and all that good stuff. You know what you're talking about because you've just done it at the table. Then we're going to have 3 minutes of open follow-up Q&A. We have Amy Weissman on the right here. Amy, if you can raise your hand. And we also have Caitlin Hamrock on the left, both of our core members of our research team. And also props to Caitlin. Caitlin was the force of nature behind pulling almost all of this data that you see today. So give her a round of applause. Okay, the perennial question, who wants to go first? Okay, it's you, Stars. All right. So I'm going to start the timer, and I'll be polite and wait till you actually get here. Okay, mic there.
Okay.
Take it away.
Okay, I don't think this is actually going to take 6 minutes, but so we talked about the STAR. The key issues that we identified are actually the achievement of low-income and English language learner students. The trend we noticed was they were consistently lower performing across the pipeline. We were specifically looking at elementary grades, that is 3rd through 8th. With the greater regress, so there's a significant achievement gap in middle school years. The insight we came up with was that there are significant changes in middle school for the students themselves. There's changes in the programming options that they have, and there are changes in the support systems available to them in middle school that, as compared to what they had in elementary school. So the implications for practice are, we feel that there's to strengthen and re-examine the programs that are available to students in the Tier 1, the elementary grades, what's available to them, and to identify the ones that can be replicated. So we believe that it is more important, or it is important to know more, or to take a deeper dive into the data and identify bright spots among schools and districts for those programs that can be used to help strengthen performance across the region and the schools. And that would include identifying good teaching models, identifying good programs that can be replicated at other schools.
We're working on getting another mic, so I'm going to sort of bounce in and out for a second. But why don't you introduce yourself? Let everybody know who you are.
My name is Sharon Yarbrough. I'm with Southwest Key Programs and East Austin College Prep.
All right. So we have 3 minutes and 49 seconds for Q&A. So because we're
She's an expert in STAR data.
yes.
I'm the mom of a middle schooler, if that helps. So.
Okay, so we have Amy and Caitlin ready to bring you a microphone. Who has follow-up questions, comments, whatever it is?
Simon.
Yes. No. Let me try that. Can you hear me? How about now? There we go. Okay, so questions about STAR, questions about what they saw?
You have a question.
A question.
I was wondering if you were able to identify whether or not the increased emphasis on the standardized test had any impact over the 10 years, negatively or positively. I don't know if the dashboard showed that.
No, we specifically chose to look at the elementary through middle school numbers because from my recollection, once again being the mom of a 6th grader who's going into 7th, I remember that the STAR's been consistent, so we were at least able to compare the same test. We didn't look at the high schoolers who could possibly have had the previous version of the test. And so that's the only reason why we chose those guys, but so that we weren't able to see if there was a difference between the different testing models.
Okay, I know we've got some STAR experts out there somewhere. Is there a question out there, or just an add-on, something else you think we need to know that didn't come up here? Yes.
You mentioned. Sorry. You mentioned. Okay. You mentioned low-income and ELL students. Did you also look at racial differences, African-American students?
We actually did, but it was alarming to us to see those particular subgroups where, as the years went along, the gap became so huge. That's why we focused on those 2 subgroups.
What performance standard did y'all reflect on when you were talking? The approaching grade level, meets grade level, or master's grade level?
Because we had different groups or different elbow teams, everyone actually kind of looked, we chose, independently, so we were all looking at different things. And then when we got over here, we had different tables, so everyone was looking at different subsets of data.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes?
This is more of a suggestion for you all to take student groups and be able to do crosstabs. So like look at all low income and then look at groups within those groups.
We do have, I believe it's in the static slides right now, we do have what we call a 16-way split where we do crosses by ethnicity, income, and gender. So we're starting to move in that direction. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, and just one more quick instruction. Once you're done, if you can give your sheets to your table captain, your resource captain, and they're going to we're going to accumulate all of this and learn from what you've done. Okay, so who wants to go next?
Attendance.
Attendance. All right. You ready? All right.
Hi, I'm Susan Gussler. I'm with Austin Community College in the Student Success and Analytics group. And we looked at attendance, and we really noticed the most significant issue being with high school students, particularly 12th graders. The absences just skyrocketed up in 12th grade. They went up from 5th to 12th, but especially in 12th. And Central Texas had higher absence rates than the rest of the state. So, but we did notice that missing 2 weeks of school was consistent from pre-K. At pre-K, income didn't seem to make much of a difference, though most pre-Kers are low income. But then when you got to high school, low-income white students had the worst attendance rates. So what we really wanted to know why the data looked this way, and so what? So some of the whys, why such a big increase in 12th grade? Do they have jobs? Do they have kids they're responsible for, either their own or siblings? Are there more mental health issues coming into play? That sense of belonging. Ethnicity didn't seem to figure into it as much, other than with the Asian population. Then looking at so what difference did it make, whether or not they were absent? Our data focused just on attendance. It didn't really show if it impacted college readiness, graduation rates, persistence, success. So we would have liked to see those side-by-side comparisons and at what absence rate it impacted. If you had 10 or more days absence, were you less likely to persist, graduate, succeed, be college ready? Also, we didn't see any English language learner data split out. So we don't really know if that has an impact. That's it. Anything to add from our table?
Okay, let's open it up to the room. Our very shy room.
Yeah. I can give you more.
Yeah.
Statistics: a third of the high school students missed more than 2 weeks. A fifth of the Central Texas pre-Kers were chronically absent. Let's see. That's about it.
So who's facing attendance? Oh, we have a question. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment that one of our table members suggested that it might be interesting to have some focus groups with the families of people, students that are having excessive absences, to collect some data on what might be going on and to get some ideas for interventions that might be used to reduce absence rates.
Yeah, good point. And we also thought we could look at, you know, were there any other differentiating factors? Like, was there an early college start program in place, and how students at those schools' attendance rates compared, schools that had more support services in place, things like that. So again, trying to look at that.
Okay, I know we have some folks in the room who focus on attendance a lot for their work. Is there anything here that you know, resonates with you as particularly startling? Is this something you've known all along and you've wanted others to understand better? Yeah.
So I'm curious, while I work with Leander ISD School District, and my position is dropout prevention. So I work with attendance regularly. And no, none of this is surprising at all. In every single question that you guys put forth, is it mental health? Is it attendance? Is it low income? Low income isn't particularly a huge factor in which we. Do you want to hold it, or do you? Oh, okay. Gotcha. I was like, I don't have to hold it. But low income across the board isn't, from what I can see, is not particularly a huge factor, but it is obviously an addition to a factor. So all the questions that everybody's asking in regards to attendance and why students aren't attending are that. The other question that we've thrown out here recently is the fact that currently traditionally public high schools are sitting at a 4-year track, whereas we're seeing a lot more students who are actually wanting to graduate earlier. Well, if you're in a regular traditional public high school, that is particularly not an option for you as much as it used to be. So therefore, as you get to see your juniors and your seniors who are getting to the point of saying, gosh, do I want to graduate on that 22 foundation plan, or do I want to graduate on a 26 credit plan? Well, heck, if I can get out of here on 22, why not do it? And then you're also seeing a trend of students leaving to go to charter schools who can potentially graduate a little bit faster. And then you're also seeing trends. I met with a couple of people out of state who are actually doing things where they are partnering a lot with their colleges or their community colleges, and they're building high school programs within a community college setting to where kids are getting even more college credits while they're already sophomores in high school. So yes, you're seeing a trend of a lot of things, but what's going to be better, we don't know. And so that's why we're still working on it.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, who's next? All right, a volunteer, great. Or the race to the podium. Okay.
Hello, I'm Chris Allen. I'm superintendent at Marble Falls ISD, and what we were looking at was high school graduation rates, and it fit very nicely with the conversation that just concluded.
Let me just do the timer real quick, sorry.
I can keep talking while you're doing this if you want.
I believe you. I don't know if I can keep doing this while you're talking, though, so.
All right. So we looked at a couple different factors, and one was that who are the students who are least likely to graduate in 4 years? Y'all know the answer. We don't have to talk about this. Students who don't come to school. Students who are ELL. Students who are special education. African American male students. These are the same trends that we see on STAR scores and other data trends. It's nice to have the data to confirm what we know. If you've worked in public education for 10 minutes, you already knew all that. What is interesting to us is that Central Texas has the tendency to outperform the rest of the state in all of these measures ever so slightly. The other thing that's interesting is that when Central Texas gets better, so does the rest of the state. And when Central Texas dips, so does the rest of the state. So our trend line tends to mirror that of the rest of the state, which for us begged a couple questions, and that is, what are the statewide policy changes which are causing all of us to have a similar reaction? And what are the federal policy changes? So when you talk about graduation rates, it's really sticky stuff. What counts as a graduate? And how do changes in HB 5 versus the plan that came before that, remember 4x4 and all that, how did those tweaks affect these numbers? We also saw some interesting things related to the fact that mobility and attendance have nothing to do with money. So a student can be rich or poor, and these two things still have a detrimental impact. And so one of the questions we struggle with a little bit is, Is all mobility the same? Does wealthy mobility look different from poor mobility? Does mobility within a school district have a different influence on student achievement than mobility outside of a school district, or especially those of us who work in the part of the state south of San Antonio? How about international mobility? So these are all things that we're curious about. I would say one of the things that we also had a lot of discussion about, and this came up again a second ago, was why is 4 years the magic number? Why do we look at everything in terms of 4 years? Clearly, we do have some students who want to finish early. But when you're talking about students who are ELLs, who are new to the country, a number of these students are taking 5 or 6 years to graduate. Do we have any data that suggests these students are any less successful when you track post-secondary achievement? And when you allow that to consider career success and entrance into the military, and not this myopic insistence that if you don't go to college, you're a failure in life, we might find that 5 and 6 year completion gives a child an equal life chance at being successful. And so it's about customization and personalization, and how are districts that are doing this well blowing up the paradigm that 4 years has to be the magic number. And so these were just a couple of the things that we talked about in our group. I would take any questions you might have at this time.
Okay, I know there are a few lingering questions out there. We didn't get all the extroverts up on stage.
Did you testify in front of the legislation?
No. I'm trying to keep my job. And the witch hunt that's currently taking place, I'm not sure going in front of the ledge is a good idea.
Yeah, of course.
I'm too young. We need the older superintendents to do that.
I wanted to point out one thing, Chris, because you did a great summary, but if you start back in 2007, which is when the definition of graduation rate changed, the graduation rate of low-income students in Central Texas was worse than not only the state, it was worse than every other region of the state. And the good news is, while you correctly point out that everyone's gotten better, we've now surpassed every other region in the state. So if there's any really good news story out there about Central Texas, that's one of the great news stories.
And you know, I'm not just playing to the room, but we think the work of E3 has been a big part of that by the way that you've shined a bright light on things like not just attendance. See, people they've not sliced that thinly enough. Chronic absenteeism. As a matter of fact, there's a big article in the Statesman last year on this issue. We appreciate the way it shined a light on some things that we didn't want to talk about. But no, there's been some really good work done around this, and we're very appreciative of the work of E3 and others giving us a deeper look at the data on that. But the fact still remains that it's about trying to look at how we think about school differently. One of the things I've enjoyed the most this morning, and my colleague Ian's shined a real bright light on this as well, is we have to quit thinking about high school as being this place kids go for 4 years. It's a much broader concept than that, and this is where we're really able to leverage technology. If only we had state funding systems that would acknowledge performance instead of seat time, and would wrap their heads around the complex world. If our lieutenant governor could do the basic math that he accuses media members of not being able to do, then we might be able to get some momentum around what it takes to help a student be successful. It's an easy audience.
Thank you for getting the energy up in the room, apparently. All right. All right, last and surely not least, we have...
I should have run to the podium. That's hard to follow. Oh my gosh. Hi everyone, I'm Shokit Hamilton and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for KIPP Austin Public Schools here in the Central Texas area. And we focused on college success, so it's actually a good follow to our previous speaker. We found lots of interesting trends, but a few to pull out was that regardless of race and class, if a student went to college part-time, they were less likely to persist and complete, no shocker there, than their full-time counterparts. We also found that overall in the Central Texas area, graduation rates in college have remained flat, and there are a couple of drivers of that information, or of that data. So for white and Asian American students, those completion rates have remained flat over the last 10 years. And what we've seen is an increase in completion rates for our Latino students here in the Central Texas area, and then a decrease for African Americans. So really what's driving that flat line in completion is our Latino students are graduating more and our Black students are graduating less. To take a step before that, if you look at college readiness, our African Americans by far are the least ready to go to college, which is no surprise that they're the least likely to be enrolled in a four-year college institution, persist, and complete. The other trend that we found was, regardless of income, our Asian American students are persisting in higher education. So our Asian American students in Central Texas, whether they come from a low-income background or a middle class or upper class background, they are persisting in college at the same rates, which is a bright spot. And one of the things that we talked about in our group was looking at some of the bright spots in these data. And so that goes to some of the other insights that we had, was that we really want to identify these bright spots so we can better understand how to support our students to get them not only college ready, but to college, through college, so that they can have choice-filled lives and make their own, their paths forward. The other thing that we really pointed out was, like, there's this interaction between race and poverty that we need to better understand, and it has the greatest impact when we are looking at college access and college success, and something's happening there. And we need to explore more of what's going on. Another implication for practice is, what are these college access groups, like your College Bound, these other programs that are focused on supporting students of color, low-income students, to be ready for college, to have access to these these institutions of higher education? What is, are they predicting better outcomes than students who don't participate in those programs? And then also, finally, what social emotional learning and support are we providing our high school students to get them prepared to be successful in college? I will take questions. Covered it all?
Questions about college success?
Have we solved it?
We've solved it.
So how about hearing from a couple of people who don't work in this particular area, but maybe there's some synergies with the work that you do?
Were you looking specifically at four-year?
No, we look at completion rates that include 4-year, 2-year, as well as high-level certifications for workforce.
We did find that 9 out of 10 students out of the Central Texas area go to 3 schools, and that's Austin Community College, Texas State, and the University of Texas at Austin, which was interesting.
You have a question?
Did you look at the technical schools on how kids, if they're entering while they're still in college? I mean, not in college, in high school?
We didn't deep dive into that in our particular table topic, but I'm sure E3.
And technical colleges are included in that data.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Do you have a question? Oh.
No? We don't want to be the dead audience.
So,
One more? Yeah.
Oh.
For E3, did you get the data? Do you look at when they graduate from high school and when they graduate from college, or is there some other way? How do you get that data?
Yes, we look at when they graduate from high school and following them through, and we look in particular at if they enroll within a year of graduating high school. The way that we look at that data is what's called the State Education Research Center. Texas is one of the few states that has really comprehensive data warehouses that allow us to track individual students from pre-K through 12 into post-secondary, into workforce, and see every single student in the state of Texas. So our research team has amazing access to data de-identified. We can't tell you who that student is, but we can look at individual students and track them through that entire continuum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we're almost there. Susan mentioned the ERC. I'd just like to recognize Celeste Alexander, who's over here. Celeste is the director of the ERC, and we work excruciatingly closely with you, very closely with Celeste in accessing much of the data that you've seen today. So we just wanted to thank her. I also, yes, a round of applause. I also, again, want to recognize the research team at E3 for all the good work they do, both in producing this as well as throughout the year, and also the resource captains from E3 who stepped in to help facilitate the conversation. So let's give them all a round of applause. So I'm going to end with 2 words and then turn it over to Susan Dawson to wrap up. Thank you.
And thank you, let me say again, most especially to Joshua. Caitlin pulled the data for this sets. The research team all worked on it, but Joshua built the tool sets that you saw today, and they're pretty amazing, huh? So thanks a lot. 4 quick things before we go. The first is we had some questions about, can I see this by my district? Can I see this by charter schools? Can I slice and dice this kind of data in different ways? The answer is yes and no. This tool set, the Central Texas Education Profile, I'm getting a little feedback, is intended to support systems change. So it supports data at a regional level where we can bring together all of the resources, higher ed, pre-K through 12, nonprofit business, and say, how do we focus on our region and improve outcomes for our entire region? So that's what you'll see in the profile data set, sliced and diced different ways. But we very much do dive much deeper into the data. For instance, we have a meeting with every Lockhart principal day after tomorrow, where we'll say, what does your district data, school by school, look like in comparison to the entire district? We have a meeting later today with Central Texas Education funders looking at mobility patterns. So we dive deeply into the data, but we try to do it in a way that's sensitive, and it's not intended to get people on the front page of the paper, but instead to support systemic change, and then to, as Chris said, go directly to those who are the practitioners and challenge it on a more deep level. So that's the answer to that one. Second, I just wanted to see overall, if we separate ourselves out from the 4 issue areas that we looked at, are there any ahas that anybody had? Are there any sort of overarching things that you took away from this that you want us to be thinking about? Anybody? Yes, Janet. She wishes the graphs were moving up, and some of them are moving up. Attendance has moved up pretty significantly. Low-income graduation rates are moving up pretty significantly. School readiness is down like a rock. So there are certainly many of them that are not moving up the way we need to. We need more and more of your bright spots. More and more bright spots. Yep, absolutely.
I think the biggest impact or aha moment that I have right now is the importance of bringing all these people into the same room to discuss this data.
Good. Good. I hope that's worthwhile for all of you. Thank you for being here. Suki?
I think some of the deepest work that has to be done is the social emotional learning piece, and I think getting that going from early ages is going to help us with that chronically underperforming group of the low-income kids, and just kids that aren't getting those supports that they need to be ready.
And so Suki's talking about if you had a chance to dig into the school readiness data at all today, and if not, you can go home and do this, that when we saw a significant drop in school readiness year before this year, and then again this year, it tracked directly to a drop in social emotional learning. And so we're seeing a qualitatively different student come into our classroom who is less emotionally prepared to access learning than we did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And when we went back and looked at this, and Laura and Amy and our team did some phenomenal work, we can track this back to cuts in federal and state services when these kids were 0 to 3. So we can show you that these kids who are coming in less ready did not have the services they needed in the 0 to 3 stage, and we have to address it as a region. What else? Any other big ahas? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I just think we need to take this out of this room and to the public, and to parents, families, teachers, and get their voice.
Think we need to take it out of the room to parents, families, teachers, and get their voice. That's a great segue. because I want to say two final things, and then we'll be gone. One is people asked about when will this data be updated. There's some amazing information out there, but as you saw, some pieces are more interactive than others. There's some whiz-bang tools, others that we've got, but they were still in the testing phase, not ready to show you. We'll be doing this on a continuous basis, but we'll be updating it on both our Twitter and our Facebook feeds for E3 Alliance. So just follow us there if you want to see, hey, here's a new interactive chapter, a new way to look at longitudinal data, or whatever it is. We'll have that on Twitter and Facebook. But then the final thing is, please do help us. All of the data that we provide, either through these interactive tools or statically or however, we want people to use. We want you to use, we want you to help share, so that as a region, we are both accessing data and building capability to use it better, and building a culture where we all together have a data-driven region. Okay? So thank you for being our foot soldiers, and please take this out and share it as widely as you can and give us feedback. We'll take it to continue to make this better. Thank you for coming today. We appreciate it.